Hi, I'm Gordy Gundaker. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor podcast.
Hi, I'm Don Martin. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor. And this thing is big. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor. This is episode number 2. My name is Don Martin. I'm joined by
Gordy Gundaker.
And we want to announce that we're proud to be brought to you by the people of Nutrien.
Hoker Trucking.
All right, I like that. And then we're also going to talk about Bodies by Skinny, a Longhorn official dealer out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and
Checkered Customs, right there, baby. Screen printing and embroidery.
This week we're going to actually talk about, we got the Nippy 50, we're going to recap a little bit, but we're kind of going to start put that on the back burner a little bit because we got a special guest tonight, Jason Feger, that's going to be joining us, so we're going to tie in with that a little bit more. So we're going to talk more about leading into the sprint cars a little bit. And I thought the first thing we'd probably talk about the sprint cars going last weekend is the World Outlaws. World Outlaws got at Lawton. They were at Lawton and, of course, 81 Speedway. And at Lawton, you know, in my opinion, the racetrack never really got wide enough, Gord. And kind of guys, I think Carson had a better car than Kofoid, in my opinion. And I'm sure that I'd like to know what you think about that, but the track really just didn't let him get going.
No, and really, you watch the heat races, all that stuff, nobody went anywhere. It never really got to a point where a guy could make any moves. And it's tough when it gets like that. When it doesn't really matter how much of a good car you have, because at the end of the night, you got to be able to race a racetrack as well. And so a guy like that, buddy, out front, it's going to be tough to get around no matter what when you don't have a ton of racetrack and not a lot of areas to make speed. So, but props to those guys. They did what they had to do, find a way to get a win. And yeah, it sucks as a racer, when you get nights like that. I know as promoters and guys who do the track, you don't ever want it to be that way, but sometimes it's just the cards you're dealt with, and you kind of get in there and get out of there, and Buddy and them guys found a way to get a win.
And then we moved on to the next night. They go to 81 Speedway in Kansas, and we all know what happened. That was a really tough night because you got fans that are sitting there hoping to see a race. They're trying to do the best they can. They're monitoring the weather, and all of a sudden, the wind conditions just and we all know. I personally was watching the race and watching Blake Hahn and Corey Eliason took 2 really tough crashes. Yeah. And I actually thought, because I'm not there, and I did not realize that both of those incidents were due to wind conditions.
Yeah, those cars, obviously, the air moves and things around when there's no wind. And so you see what happens when you get big high gusts of winds, and those sideboards are running 2 different directions, and they grab wind like no other. And we saw it back at, I believe it was Vegas with High Limit. They talked about the winds moving them around even there. So yeah, just an unfortunate situation, and nobody wants that. The promoters at 81 don't want that. The series doesn't want it. You hate it for the fans who spend money and travel out there, but at the same time, you can't put your drivers in a dangerous situation when you know the risks already. Yeah, and they'll find a good date. They'll get back out there. The sprint cars always put on a good race at 81. 81's one of my favorite tracks to go to in general. We went there with the Outlaws, and the place always races good. So, just one of those deals, and the series did right by the drivers and made the best call they could, what they thought was the safest, and you can't be mad at them for that.
Well, do you think then High Limit was supposed to be a Vado tonight, and of course the event was canceled because they knew high winds were coming in? And do you think that what happened at 81 a little bit kind of made the decision like where they were looking at it?
Well, those guys are watching, right? Everybody, either gets on X on Saturday night or whatever, and they see that the race got canceled because of wind. So it's definitely in the back of your mind. And, we can all watch weather apps now, and there's no reason to get a bunch of fans to travel out to Vado, get the teams there, with the chance that you're going to cancel in the middle of the night. So I don't blame them one bit for calling it early. Once again, it's another bad deal. It sucks. Nobody wants to cancel a race, especially High Limit right there out there on a West Coast swing. Yeah. The last thing they want to do is lose a race just to win. But at the same time, the safeties of the drivers and the teams definitely comes first.
And speaking of High Limit, great 2-day show at Central Arizona. Crowd was spectacular. Yeah. Great feel. And then we saw Reitzel come right back get it, and then we all know that 49 does what the 49 does, and says, "Oh, Kenny, I've been here one night. I think I got it figured out. Let me get back to checkers."
Yeah, well, you know, I think if this would have been like a middle of the year Casey Kane, I think he might have found a way to hold Brad off. And the only reason I say that is just because he hasn't had any experience recently with being out front leading races, catching lap traffic, and that's what happens when you get a guy like Brad behind you that knows where to capitalize. You know, Casey put himself in a bad spot one time down in 1 and 2, entered in the crumbs, and Brad drove around him, and that's just the part of it. And props to Casey and those guys at the end of the day, though, because I mean they're doing a hell of a job. Casey's driving unbelievably. You know, you can see how much more comfortable he is every night. The speed he's carrying, from qualifying all the way through the feature. So yeah, just I think at the end of the day, you know, Brad does what he always does, but really Casey and those guys, they're definitely going to knock a win off this year. I think no doubt about it, because you're not going to carry that much speed consistently now and not find a way to clip one off. But yeah, it's tough to hold the 40.
I was rooting for him too as well.
Yeah,
I really
think everybody was, right?
You know, and here his boss is the one that takes it from him.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you know, he did a great job really running them down at the end.
Yes.
You know, maybe another lap. Brad gets caught in lap traffic. I mean, even going down the back chute. Brad kind of got caught up with the guy. So, I mean, props to those guys. And High Limit's dealing with the 49 is like we said, you know, last week, it's going to be tough to beat those guys.
I think what's exciting is the fact that, you know, we after this week, you know, High Limit's off for a little bit. And we might see a mix of these guys. We got you got at Peevely, you got Knoxville. And we finally might get to see this 49 versus the 2 car coming up. And speaking of changes coming up, I mean, you can't talk about change without talking about the big news in the Shots camp. Yeah. I mean, it gets announced that Donnie's going to Chevy's, and I know that you know the family personally and everything else. And I talked to Diane actually early in the week, and she told me what was going on a little bit, and I didn't kind of pry too much about it, and because of the press releases, you want to respect the teams, and so I'd like to know your kind of thoughts, you know, on the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, being around Donnie, you know, the last couple of years and going to a lot of races, being at Knoxville when they won the Nationals, and those things, I think those races softened the blows of how bad they were struggling with the motor program. And you look back at really Donnie being in his prime, and I don't want to say they wasted it, but there's a lot of good years that we lost that, you know, Donnie could have been in Chevys. And now, you know, it puts him in a tough spot now, because everybody's going to go, well, if he doesn't go out here and win, is he just getting old and he's done? Like, I mean, man, I've seen the guy race, you know, firsthand. God, I don't know how many times in the recent years. I promise you he hasn't lost a step. But it's going to take him a little bit to develop that program. You know, I mean, when you swap motor programs, it's not just, oh, hey, we put another motor in, we're good to go. You know, the weights of the motors are different. Your packages are different. They're in the midst of really, changing crew chiefs and different things. So they've got their own things to work out. But I would say with Donnie behind the wheel, that's the best case scenario for them. I think it's going to take a little bit. I don't know if he's just going to hop out and light the world on fire, but I'd say after time, you're definitely going to see him, you know, battling more, and they're going to have way less failures. I mean, I don't know how many nights we've Johnny Gibson hop on there and say, oh, the 15 team is changing another motor after qualifying or after the heat race. And I think that once they get through that and they realize we can, you know, race a couple nights without having to change motors and we can work on our race car, I'd say you'll start to see the success and the podiums and some wins come right back.
I think from what I understand, when I was talking to Diane, she made the comment that it looks like Kistler's is going to be the engine of choice for them. They didn't have them yet because they just ordered them. So at the time they were using the shaver engines of his family, of the nieces, to get him through this.
I do think they ended up getting one for last weekend, but I don't want to 100% say that. Yeah. But, you know, I think obviously they only raced a night and a half. And so, right. I think it just take a little bit of time. But, I mean, Donnie hasn't won 300-plus races for no reason.
No doubt about it.
I think it'll be good to see what happens here in a month. You know, I think you're going to have to give him a little bit of time. But I also think that, you know, those big races, when you get to your Knoxvilles and your Eldoras, that he's going to be right where he always is up front battling. And if they can dial it in, I'd say, knocking 5 wins off this year isn't, too far outreach.
Andy Hillenberg used to always tell me, he says, Donnie Schatz, as the weather gets hotter, he gets hotter.
Yeah.
Because when the tracks slow down a little bit and they get a little slick and technical, there aren't too many better. No. Andy even tells me, he goes, Steve and Donnie are the best two I've ever seen in slick track conditions.
You watch the races, and Donnie's one of the only guys that can ever run right in the middle of the racetrack. And that's at big racetracks, little racetracks, it doesn't matter. He's one of the only guys that ever keeps his car straight enough, understands where he's running, how to maintain his wheel spin, all of those things to allow him to run out in the middle of the racetrack, where a lot of guys don't have that.
That's right. Well, the one thing that I thought was interesting, here we talk about all the Ford deal and everything else, and then Justin Peck is starting to pick up steam, and then Peck gets out and makes the announcement. He goes, Ford's got some new package for us in the coming weeks. Yeah. We're excited about what's going on. So you're kind of like, okay, one guy leaves, another guy has been, we all know, Justin started the season out, when they went to Volusia in the Chevy and the 360, and me and you talked about it. It's like, wow, he's going to have an unbelievable year with Kevin and Monica, And then all of a sudden, they struggle on the high limit side. And on bull rings, and we always have said Justin's are really good on the smaller rig. Yeah, we thought he'd be really good on the West Coast, and it really didn't happen the way they wanted it to happen. And they'd be the first one to tell us. And then the next thing you know, he gets a good run and then starts talking about, hey, I'm excited about where things are going with our Ford program. Yeah. And I was kind of surprised to hear that. Yeah. Well, I wonder too that, maybe with the news of Donnie stepping out, maybe that they think now they're, kind of the top dog there, and they can have some, real push with the Ford guys. And at the same time also, Kevin and those guys have a lot invested in that as well. Right. I mean, obviously Tony and TSR was the main gig of that, but Rudine jumping on and really pumping some money into it as well. I don't think they just want to give up on it at the end of the day. I mean, they won some races last year, so yeah, it'll be interesting. I also, I know from what I had always heard that it was going to be a little bit that they were waiting on some parts and different stuff to get new motors built, and what they were going to be trying to kind of R&D down the road. So yeah, man, I hope for those guys that they figure it out. But I also think for Donnie, he's probably looking at it going, man, I just feel like I'm wasting time here. Let's get on to something else and get where we're not changing motors all the time. You could just tell by some of his facial expressions when you're watching it on the tube. He looked frustrated, and he had every right to be. Yeah. And we both know, and he knows, and I think you hit it right on the head. He's still capable of winning a lot of races, and he's going to win a lot of races. This is by far not over for this guy. No. He's too much drive. Yeah. He could have quit anytime he wanted to quit and walked away with one hell of a career. And he does it and he just doesn't do it to go through the motions. I think Donnie Schatz is one of those. When he can no longer feels like he can win, he's stepping away. Yeah. No. So if he's still in it, he knows. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and I think that's why he doesn't. Getting a hang around him, he's a competitive person in everything he does. But especially when he gets in a race car and he's at the racetrack. That's one thing about him. He is all business when he's there. And I've always known him that way long before I'd ever really got to spend a lot of time with him. So, yeah, it'll be cool to see, I think, as they move forward. Don't get me wrong, but the Outlaws need it, right? Absolutely. They need Donnie Schatz just to be on the tour just as much as anything. But so it'll be, like I said, it'll be definitely fun to see. And I think that what brings us up is our top 25, because he's not on there. And I'm going to tell you right now, when you see Biggest Movers, when he gets his stuff figured out, we're going to see we're going to watch a lot of this going up through the top all the way up the ladder. Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch, actually, because he's probably going to be looking at this going, okay, you watch this. And I think, like, when we look at our top 25, some of the guys on here, to me, some of the most disappointing, Casey being 13 is wonderful. Yeah. And just like we talked about, we could have won that race. But we both know, like, Rico has been really disappointing to see where he's at right now. We know that's going to change. Yep. Moving up there. I think when we look at for where we're at in the season, when we look at our top 10 in the sprint cars, I think we all kind of agree going, it's kind of where it deserves to be right now at this time. But there's some guys that naturally not in that top 10 that we know are going to soar. I think of Donnie and Rico right off the bat that are outside the top 10, that probably be inside the top, should be both inside the top 5. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think it's also funny. You look up there, you got 3 guys in the top 25 that aren't full-time sprint car guys. You got Larson, you got Bell, and you got Corey Day. And, so that's going to be some moving and shaking.
And they're dropping.
Yeah, as time goes. But I think, you look at the top 3 makes, more than enough sense. I hope we get to see those guys go at it soon. Just for fans, because seeing Brad and David racing in the same races is going to be cool, because those guys clearly are at the top of both their series, and it's good for those guys too, because they want to race against each other.
And there's been some stuff on social media a little bit.
Yeah,
and we both know, there's been some calling a little bit out. I don't know if it's jealousy of the series. I just think it's a competitive nature.
Yeah,
and that's what I want. I mean, David Gravel's very competitive, and his crew chief Cody Jacobs very competitive. Brad, going for 7 championships in a row. Very competitive, okay? So I think it's what we all want.
Well, why wouldn't you, right?
Exactly.
And that's the only thing that has kind of driven this all apart is between the High Limit and the World Outlaws, is that you don't get to see now those top guys going at it every night. It's a mix and match when you get to see them, a couple weekends of the year. Obviously, your big weekends, and then when High Limit's off, are they going to go run the outlaw races?
Right.
I don't see how Brad and them guys don't go run the outlaw races. I think they will. I
do too.
They're on the, that's what they're on the road to do. So I'd imagine you see them guys, at Peevely and obviously Knoxville and those things like that. But it'll be interesting to see how they all line up against each other.
When I look at Peevely, like even next week, like Sheldon, dude, there's nobody that runs. I mean, Sheldon Haudenschild at Peevely, Missouri, if you had to watch one guy even run hot laps, he's worth the price of admission.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
So I'm like you. But the one thing that I think is great about High Limit and the World of Outlaws, and I think you'll agree with me, because you know what it takes and the cost to be out there racing. Having 2 major series out there with great payoffs enables guys that you normally probably wouldn't see on tour, like a Davy Sams.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, if we got one World of Outlaws series, do you see Davy Sams out there?
Well, no, because he has to look at it and go, okay, can I go afford to run 10th to 20th every night? It's not realistic, and so he can look at it now and go, okay, I can scratch off a couple top 5s. I can get quite a few top 10s, going to have bad nights, maybe scratch a win off when they get in his area. So it is definitely beneficial at the end of the day, because you're funding more teams to be on the road. That is one of the things that's always been nice about having an Outlaw series and a Lucas series.
That's right.
Because when the money's out there, you're able to fund more guys to go out on the road that maybe don't get that opportunity. So I've never said High Limit was a bad idea by any means. I think there was a lot that happened in the transition period that people maybe judged on and different things. But at the end of the day, it's good because you have regional guys who are now national touring guys that can afford to go do it because they're making enough money each weekend, and probably more than they ever would racing regional races. So it is very exciting to see. And you got a bunch of different guys that are doing it. I mean, heck, how about Caleb Montgomery going out here and running all these races?
Impressive.
He's made a name for himself.
Absolutely.
Made a name for himself in 2 weeks. Nobody really knew who he was. And now everybody knows who he is.
He even picked up a sponsor on the wing, I noticed, over the weekend with Inland Rig.
Yep. So,
which I think is awesome.
Yeah. So it's a cool deal for him. And I guarantee you he's thankful, that there's 2 series, because if not, maybe he doesn't get his name out there.
That's right.
Yeah, it's definitely a neat deal to see, those guys being out on the road, taking their licks. That's how you get down the road. Look at every national touring guy now that's winning championships. They got their asses handed to them when they started. Nobody has ever jumped on the scene and just lit it on fire and went out and won a champion. You don't see it. So it's that's part of it, and that's how you get guys to get experience, is being able to go run these series and run these races.
And it's great for the fans. Think about it. When the World of Outlaws were the only ticket, when they went out to the East Coast, if you lived in the Midwest, it was kind of like, you're looking at schedule when they come back. Now it's kind of neat. It's like if one organization is out on the East Coast, the other one's still close in the Midwest or something. Yeah. You have options for, I think the race fans, it stinks sometimes where you go, I'm paying the price and I wish all the best were in the house. But at the same time, man, both series are awesome. And there's great cars on both series. And I think the fans, and it also gives some guys another chance to be household names. And that's very important.
Yeah. Well, you got to have them, right? You have to have growth in the sport, right? It can't just be the same guys over and over and over again. It's impressive what Brad's doing, right? But think of how many people when Donnie was winning everything on the Outlaws, how they were, I mean, he was getting booed everywhere he went because nobody else was winning, you know, and everybody gets sick of that. So now you got numerous guys coming in here. You got Reitzel back on the road winning races. You got Buddy Kofoid winning races. You know, that's, you know, 2 years ago, Buddy's in a midget. So he doesn't get an opportunity if there's not 2 series. You know, he's probably in a sprint car, but he's probably not up front maybe winning all these races because Brad and David and Donnie and those guys would be winning everything just like they have. So I think it's I think at the end of the day, Kyle and Brad did a great job with what they brought into the sport. And as much as some people don't like it, it's just the truth.
I agree with you 100%. Now we're switching over to our top 25 in the late miles. Naturally, Jay didn't race, of course, last weekend. And Bobby doubled up, and Bobby's our new guy on top right now. It's very well deserved.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's been hot he started at Maryville, Tennessee, you know, at Smoky Mountain. He goes out there, he wins, goes to Swainsboro, he gets a win, a podium. Then he comes right back, you know, goes to the Nippy 50, and then, you know, and let me tell you what, that was a tough field of cars.
Yeah.
To double up on.
Well, I mean, in reality, you know, we were laughing about it, talking Friday, you know, looking at just the qualifying groups, and Trevor said something to me like, "Oh, it's like a Summer Nationals field, you know, and I said, this is not a Summer Nationals. If this is Summer Nationals, it's on steroids. You know, I mean, you look at how many touring guys we had, how many guys that are Midwest regional guys that are really, really good, how many guys you had, you know, coming from out west, up north. I mean, there was 40-something cars both nights.
Yep.
And
damn near 50 cars.
And within the top 15, we were spread, you know, maybe half a second from first to 15th in each qualifying group, outside of Thornton going out there and blistering us, you know, whatever night it was, he set the track record. But outside of that, the one night we looked at it, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th was like 0.734, 0.736, 737, 738. I mean, that's the difference in a complete row. So, I mean, Bobby's going to be tough all year. We knew that going into it. And I mean, right now I would say, you know, him and the 49, if you had to ask me if you could share a number one spot, you'd share it because
no doubt. I think when you look at our top 5, it's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, Ricky's been just a little. I mean, I said going into last week, and Jonathan Davenport's been the most consistent and best hot. And you know, but at the same time, he didn't race last week, and you can't ever penalize a guy for not racing. You know, and should be racing. And JD's probably, you know, he's looking at his schedule, and it's like, yeah, makes sense. Take this. I'll guarantee you, was probably looking at probably going to Atomic this weekend,
right?
Because he almost probably would have won that race had it not been for the lap car the last race.
Yeah.
And but I thought it was interesting is that 3 of the top 5 were at the Nippy 50.
Yeah. Yep. No, you know? I mean,
Albertson was no joke last weekend.
No, and
Gustin was good.
Garrett's been fast all year. I mean, Volusia, he was good. At Bubba's, he was good. Nippy 50, he's good. So, yeah, none of those guys are slacks right now. Obviously, I mean, Gustin was good. You know, they timed in well. Really, it's just hard. You know, I mean, you go to these races and everybody is close in speed, but it just seems like those very top guys are just that much better. So running 5th to 10th in these races is not nothing to hang your head on. I can tell you that much. So I mean I know we raced real hard Friday night, you know, to get to the top 10, and then unfortunately ended up being in a J bar and some other stuff, but wasn't from lack of effort, you know. And so yeah, it was a tough place to go to, and it was a great event. You know, Jeff and his entire staff knocked out the park. I was so happy for them. They got great weather.
It was wonderful.
And it was great.
I saw the pictures of the fans lined up to buy tickets, man. It was very impressive.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can ever talk about the top 25 without mentioning Josh Rice.
Yeah.
I mean, he comes off. He's been really hot lately. I mean, we're damn near beat Ricky, you know, at Chillicothe. And then, of course, he has a good run at Brownstown. Then he comes back the following week and has look what he did at Florence, you know. And naturally, I get it. He's in familiar territory, but the bottom line, he's still getting it done.
No, 100%. I mean, Josh is known to be one of the guys that can go up and beat the boards down. A place like Atomic feeds right into him. You know, Florence obviously feeds right into him. I think they said that was his 3rd Spring 50 win, but you still gotta get it done at the end of the day. So there's no reason he shouldn't have moved up the list. But you know, I've raced with Josh a lot, and we've a lot of different places. he's got way more speed than you would think he does. I think he kind of gets overshadowed just because he's not a national touring guy. And, you know, when you see the national touring go to his area, he's always right up front with them. So, you know, definitely congrats to those guys. One of the best things about Josh and James is, you know, obviously they're an 11 car, but we're both notorious for, you know, the doors staying open late, the 3, 4, 5 a.m.s. So I hope they never park us together anywhere, because if we do, it'll be we'll definitely see the sun come up.
I actually think that Josh would be a good one to have on the show here.
Yeah, I'm sure we could get him on.
And it'd be a lot of fun.
Definitely.
And that pretty much sums up our top 25. And I think now we're ready to get our guest, Jason Feger, with us. And let's take a moment, and this is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, that'll be something, that's for sure.
Tonight's guest, we are joined on the Dirt Parlor with the back-to-back Mars champion, Castrol Series regular last year, the Highside Hustler, Mr. Jason Feger. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
We're excited about having you, brother.
Awesome.
You know, Gordy and I were talking a little bit about the Nippy 50 last weekend, and naturally, and I'm curious to why you mentioned, and I saw something even earlier, like, you know, I'm not really comfortable here. You know, I know we tested, we feel better. And Gordy kind of said the same thing, that he goes, you know, I'm still trying to figure this place out myself a little bit. But first of all, what an event, man. Unbelievable crowd, close to 50 cars. I mean, I'd like both of you to kind of talk a little bit about assess kind of your week and talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk about some other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Hoker, you know, sponsors me and Gordy and a bunch of guys and a bunch of events, and he has a lot of connections, and he's really good at putting stuff on him. And obviously Ricky Kai is really good at track prep, and it was really cool to see them guys put in so much work and, you know, get the rewards of having a really good weather for this time of year. In Northern Iowa, it's pretty risky, and I mean, the forecast looked awful, and it just kept getting better and better all weekend. And man, they hit a home run. I mean, there's a ton of people there. So it was good to see their hard work pay off. And especially they get a lot of sponsors. I don't know if Gordy got anything, but like I got $250 on Friday for winning a heat. And then I got extra $500 for hard charger on Saturday. And I know they had money for like the first guys to non-transfer. And so, you know, they do a good job of trying to put money, you know, back in the field and stuff like that. And for other people, like, you know, 2,000 to start at a 15,000 wins a pretty good race, you know, nowadays. So they're not trying to just make it really top heavy. So it's good to see them getting support and, you know, be able to hit a home run.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure too, I mean, how lucky we got. It was 80 degrees on Friday. You know, I mean, I know the wind was blowing and stuff. And I mean, even for the conditions they were dealt with coming out, not really racing on that racetrack, I mean, we got a hell of a racetrack for, you know, 2-3 days there that we were, you know, able to race all over. And even, you know, they went out and worked on it a bunch, made sure that, you know, we really had something to put a show on as well. And last year when we went there, I honestly didn't think much of it. I just didn't think it was that great. You know, obviously it was still tough in March, and just what they've done in a year with having some big races, you know, having Ricky Kai there, you know, just as an overall event, I mean, from last year to this year was, you know, a huge home run for Jeff and those guys. And it was just awesome to see, because we didn't think we were racing as of last Sunday or Monday. I mean, I know I didn't think we were.
The purse, you know, when we talked to Jeff last week, I mean, the purse, I mean, it was like $125,000 a person. And that doesn't include some of the other contingencies you have going on through the course of the week. And I mean, and the heat races were some of the best heat races you see anywhere. You know, usually, you know, some of the tracks we see, it's like, if the heats aren't good, then as the night goes, the racing gets better. But I can tell you, man, from the heat races to the consies to the 8 features, I mean, they were wonderful. The races, they were tremendous.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about it. And then somebody was talking about Saturday, and they're like, man, the heat races, you know, we were passing, like, you know, I came from second row and passed 2 of the best, and like all the heat races were good racing. So, yeah, we definitely don't see that very much anymore. I feel like our heat races are usually not much passing, so you better qualify good, or if you are passing, it's because somebody messed up or there's a wreck or something like that. So it was really cool to see. I think maybe one thing that makes that good track maybe a little bit more raceable or that way, which, like I say, I'm still not like, it's not my cup of tea by any means, but like I noticed practice tonight, you know, I'm sitting in my car while guys are making adjustments, and I'm looking at the race monitor, watching like even like Shirley come off the track, or Albertson, or, you know, Sheppy, good guys. And it's like, you go out there and they might hit like a a 14.3, but their next lap's a 14.7, and then they could be a 14.4 and then a 14.8. So like there's that place is, I mean, it's really wider probably than it looks on TV. I mean, it's pretty wide. Like straightaways aren't that wide, but the corners I feel like are wide, and you can run a lot of different grooves there. And if you miss it a little bit, I mean, it's a minimum of 3 or 4 tenths. So I think that's maybe why the racing is so good. I mean, it's probably hard to see that on TV, but if you really watch the clock, it's like, and it is. And that's kind of what I kept telling myself, you know, it's like, okay, everybody's missing their marks and being off 4 tenths. So you got to try to miss them less than everybody else, you know, and just be really consistent. And that's hard to do as a driver, because if you don't feel good or this or that, you get frustrated easy.
Now, you mentioned that you're not comfortable. What you know, naturally, I'm not a racer and you guys are, but what is it about that when you say you're not comfortable? What is it about that you're not comfortable with?
Well, number one, I like a wall, like especially at least the wall.
There you go.
At least the wall in the corners. Like it's hard. Some of those tracks when they're like that and they don't really have a ton of banking, and just especially when you go put the half mile on the outside of it, like Davenport was really bad, but like it's kind of hard to see, especially like turn 1 getting in on the top. Like Davenport, it looked like you couldn't tell at all because it used to blend with the half mile. In this place, you know, you still run off to the horse track, even though it's not, but sometimes it's really hard to see or judge that, especially if a car is in front of you and you don't have a clear vision. So I don't like that aspect of it. And then, I mean, if you do go over the top on some places, which we didn't have it this weekend, but sometimes, you know, your frame rail could hook and you can go over pretty easy. Same thing, like you get out the backstretch there, it's pretty hairy, like to yank it back on. But for me, it's just, I love a wall, and then at least in the corners, and then that place is pretty flat and round, which I've just never really been good on those types of tracks, or not very often. It takes me a while. And then that thing just doesn't have a ton of grip. You know, it's a looser wheel spin dirt. Like, I mean, honestly, to me, it's a lot like a Brownstown, Indiana. It reminds me of an old Danville, a little bit like some of Quincy. But just those are tracks I've typically struggled at unless I can go there a whole bunch to figure something out. And then it's just hard. But like, you know, there's certain guys that it really fits their style, and I'm sure they like it. I know there's plenty of guys that like tracks with no walls. So
Sure.
just for me personally, where I've grown up and how I race, it just doesn't really fit my style and what I do. And I know I've been working really hard the last year trying to figure out a program that works better on those types of tracks. So at least, you know, I feel a little more comfortable, but it's still not my ideal. But at least I feel like I think last year I missed the first night of the Nippy 50, and I didn't make one of the Woo shows when we went back in, was it late August or whatever? I mean, I missed a show both nights, which luckily we very rarely miss features. But I mean, yeah, that's when you go somewhere and you don't make a feature, it really ticks you off. And I mean, you want to work really hard to try not to make that happen again.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I noticed about last weekend. And two, one of the things that made it hard, which I don't even know if people really saw it on TV as much, but, you know, there was a hole getting into 1 and 2. And then in 3 and 4, it wasn't necessarily a hole, but it was almost like a ledge to the cushion before you actually got to the cushion. That place, especially on restarts, it's really dirty, kind of like you get sandblasted, really, you know, on the restarts. And so it's easy to lose kind of track of where you're at. You know, you think, oh, man, it's not that hard to dictate where the top or the bottom is. But when you got guys kind of crossing you and throwing dirty stuff across you, you don't see it. I mean, that's how Friday night I ended up, you know, out of the race, was because we went into 1 on the restart and I didn't see the hole. And by the time I saw it, it was too late. And, you know, I piled into that hole and then went down into 3 and 4 and hit the other one and killed a J-bar and an axle, and all those things. And I don't want to say it was, you know, I'm not blaming the racetrack or anything. It's just, it's tough. And when you can't see it, it's harder to hit your marks at a place like that. And that place gets really dirty really quick all of a sudden. Like, you might go make a lap and one lap is completely clean in the top, and the next lap you go down there and you can't see it. And you got to barrel off in there just as hard. Yeah, and if you want to hit, you know, if you want to hit your marks. So we are going to talk real quick. We're going to post a video of your little mishap on Friday night.
State of Iowa. Down the back straightaway as they try to tiptoe through lap traffic. Almost went off the back straightaway. Pierce now going to go to third. Got his sights set on Brian Shirley. Feger slips up a bit on the high side and he might be in trouble. Your points champion 2 years in a row has brought out the Midwest Sheet Metal caution.
Yeah, and it's easy to do. And so when people are home or kind of watching this video, you'll see how easy it happens, because really in an instance, you only missed your mark by 6 inches or a foot. And it's the difference between running the top 3 and having to go all the way to the back. So, I mean, you can kind of expand on that a little bit more of just kind of what happened with you in the race car. But just take us through that.
Well, yeah. So like it's, I hit it actually on practice night. I hit it. Didn't even really, the 1 and 3, the 1 and 1, you could see on entry, I felt like a lot better, and it was probably in a little bit better spot. But the 1 and 3, like if you were, depending where you set your car in entry, you kind of was really hard to miss. After that, it was like, for whatever reason, it was really hard to see. I hit it practice night and went off the track. And I know Garrett hit it practice night and went off the track. And Bobby hit it, Saturday and went off the track, in the feature, but was still able to win. But, I'm learning, I think was like 3rd at that point. And I just went in there and I hit it. I didn't even think anything about it. And it just caught me and turned me straight right. And like, that was the other thing that was kind of weird. Like very rarely, like we hit a lot of bumps and ruts. And I feel like very rarely does it just turn you dead right like that. And, it just turned me dead right. And, obviously I jam on the brakes to try to not go off the track or not go off as far as, as little as possible. And when I did that, it killed the motor. And usually, these things wicked right back up, and I was rolling really fast. And I think we were just in such loose fluff that wouldn't grip the tires enough to make it hook and take back off. So I don't know. It just frustrating because, if it would have started back up, I probably could have came back on in 7th or 8th maybe, and at least had a shot, to stay in the top 10 there. And just frustrating, I mean, that was having a great night going, and obviously a Mars points race, so that really sucked for me.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the Mars deal, I mean, naturally that's the plans this year to chase the series again full time.
Yeah, I mean, I love racing with those guys. Obviously, Matt Curl kind of started that deal, and he was World Outlaw race director there for a few years, and I felt like he did a great job with World Outlaws. And then, I think he probably would still stay with that role if he wouldn't have been able to take over February. And so he basically runs it, more like he did the Outlaw deal. And he brought in Jonathan Clayton, who I feel like is really well too. They're both very smart guys. And I mean, the thing I like about them both too is like they're very receptive to listening. Like we talk a lot about things, just to make the series better. And they're very, they listen to the drive. They listen to me. They listen to Unziger. They really listen to their drivers and try to do the best they can for all of us. And, Matt realizes that he needs a series to keep our whole area strong as a whole. And, for February and everything else, I feel like, and that was kind of the idea behind this thing. And, last year, I won the points. It was 10,000, which isn't really much, right? But like, you see, they bumped it up to 25 this year, and they've got a little bit of tow money. And, if you're a champion, you don't have to pay an entry fee. So like, but he told me all along, he's like, I'm not making money on this deal. It's just about what we can gain for sponsors and try to keep this going. And he goes, we want to build up the right way, so it's here for a while. We just don't want to throw a bunch of money in it, lose money, and then have to bail on it. They want to build it up right. I think it's a 32 race schedule this year. And for me, it just works out really good because like Makokata was 2.5 hours away. So the furthest one away for me is like Paducah, which is like 4 hours. And then
which is one of your favorite tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hill's like 3 hours away, but really, I mean, 90% of the schedule is less than 2 hours from my door. And they're all 5,000s a win. So and then the other thing to that is, which UMP announced, they announced this weekend, UMP is putting in an extra $3,000 that like they're going to pay it just like they would a region. So the Mars now, which they did it last year for maybe the Comp Cam series and something else. So I didn't know why they did it for the Mars last year, but now it's an extra 3,000 to win through UMP. And I think it's like 15 and 1,000 second, third, I think down to the 5th or 10th. But so that's a little extra money. And then, obviously like last year, the UMP champion. So that's an extra 25,000 too. So, and plus I got some region money and stuff like that. So when I'm hitting these, I'm getting good UMP points, and it's just worked out really well for me. And, it's really, I'm getting old. I would give anything to be on the road, but now I don't envy them guys that got to be gone for 30 to 45 days in a row, like they do in that real, that stretch of month of money. There's a lot of great tracks there, but man, it's hard on family and crew guys and everybody. And, that's what people don't see about our sport is how hard that stuff really is. And, the racing part's the fun part, that's our reward, but the rest of it is probably worse than a regular job. So I'm really fortunate. I get to come home. We get to work in our shop. We got an air conditioner when it's hot outside.
Yeah.
We pretty much drive back, we're in our bed every single night, just about. So it just works out really good for me, and it's just nice to be able to have a lot of money in my area, really close to the house.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing I think too, like you were saying about Matt and those guys that listen to the racers, I think, when I went out on the Outlaw Tour, it was nice. My first year I had Schumann, the next year I had Francis, and both of those guys are racers that are running series. And I think that's a big deal. And Matt's not necessarily a racer, but Matt is a guy who's come up through the ranks, to earn his positions with the Outlaws, at Fairbury, now running the Mars stuff. And you can go to Matt with whether you have an issue, whether you think we need to change something with the series, with how we're teching, with anything, and he'll listen to you. He won't just tell you, no, this is how we do it. He'll take in what you have to say into consideration, and kind of run with it, rather than just say, no, sorry, we don't care. This is only one way. So, I try to go to as many of those Mars races as I can, because same deal. They're within 3-4 hours of me. So, my schedule filled up a lot of them. I know Bab said the same thing. He said, man, last year I ran 70% of the schedule, so why wouldn't I do the other 30% of the races? I think that's it's a huge benefit for a regional guy, because we didn't have a regional series for the Illinois guys.
Well, I think it's twofold. In my opinion, they're killing the Summer Nationals and the Hell Tour, and by running, I've been telling them for years they're going about it the wrong way. They need to focus on quality over quantity. We need to get down to at least 2 nights off a week at minimum. We don't need to drive an extra 5 or 6 hours to go race for $5,000 at a crap hole track, right? Like, it's just not there right now, the way that the work on these cars are. So you do that, and man, I don't want to bash anybody, but like, it's just not a well-ran thing. I feel like we always have issues. Every night there's different drama or this or that. And, that's something with Matt. You always have an answer. Things are ran a certain way. And it's like, hey, Jason, yeah, I understand. I see what you're saying. We can't change the rules in a year. We'll address this, going forward, or, but you always have an answer. It's not like I didn't see it, or, this guy is hands-on. Clayton's really good. He's in the booth on the receiver. Matt's down there, in turn 4 with the flag to working on your car, calling the starts. Like, these guys are really honed in and do a great job. And I know as a driver, there's nothing worse than going to like an unsanctioned 5,000 to win show at some track, and you're like, you don't know the format, you don't know the rules, who's teching what, like on pits, like it's a nightmare. And it just it drives me nuts. Like, and I just like the consistency, knowing what we're doing every night, like knowing how the rules run. And then the nice thing with it is pretty much all the rules 100% align with the Outlaws. So it's like, and I've been telling Sam forever on Summer Nationals, Sam, your guys, you get more Outlaw guys than us on the Mars. We all run Outlaw rules. Make your thing run exactly like it. The formats, the rules, and everything. It'd be so nice. And to me, as if I was a series director, that's what I would want, because it's way less confusion as a driver. Like, these drivers know, okay, this is how it's done. Why do you want to do anything different? Because it makes everything a mess.
Well, I think even too, I know you heard it on the race receiver this week, and they had a big pile up down there in 3 and 4 on Saturday, I think it was. And the rule always is, if you spin to avoid, don't make contact, you get your spot back. I don't know how many races we've been to over the years that you either spin to avoid or miss or whatever, and somebody just gets tossed in it because they don't see it. Matt was the first one on the radio the other night that said the 24 and the 38 didn't make contact. He said it within 20 seconds of it happening.
Not anybody was stopped yet, I don't think, right?
No. It was
to make sure the call's right or do the best they can.
Yes.
Yeah. There's always going to be missed calls, but like, all you can hope is that they're trying to do the right thing, and that,
that's right.
You know what I mean? Like that they're at least they're trying, right? And they're doing their best. That's 100%. All we can ask. So and they do a really good job.
Figure, how'd you get into racing? How did it all start for you?
Well, my grandpa raced. I never saw him race, but I guess he was a pretty good racer. They said, that would have been back like even some USAC at like Springfield Mile on the old Springfield track, and he ran quite a bit. He actually ran for, you guys probably know Eric Smith, Clee Smith, that race.
Eric Smith in the old 9 car. Yeah.
Yeah. He ran for Eric's dad for a while, and a few guys around town. So, and then my dad raced a little bit, but I only saw him maybe a couple times as a kid. Like, he pretty much moved away when I was like 5. And then, but my uncle, he always raced. So I've just been around it my whole life. And, just always knew I was going to race it sometime, or always wanted to, right? And, I really liked football and wrestling and stuff like that in high school. But once that was done, and I turned 18. Me and my grandpa and my brother, we started building a sportsman car. My grandpa, he used to always have a real big trade show up here in Bloomington back before the internet killed all the trade shows and the parts. But we had a big sale at the sale barn here in town, and we would work on that, and we started selling a few parts. So all winter, me and my brother and my grandpa would load his pickup truck with a topper full of parts, and we'd go to trade shows and try to make a little money to build a sportsman car. And, we built a car and just kind of started racing, and then just been lucky enough to be pretty good at it. So to get where we have now. But, like when I started, I was borrowing a pickup truck, borrowing a trailer. Man, it took me I think we blew up the motor 4 nights into my first year. And I think the next year we raced 12 nights. And the next year, maybe 8 nights. So probably my 4th or 5th year, I really didn't race even a full season because we just didn't, we were just, we were a little team out of a little 2-car garage and finally just built it up over a long period of time, but it's, we did it the hard way, for sure. But once my grandpa passed and his health went downhill pretty early. So really from about pretty much before I got in a late model on, he really wasn't able to help me much, but he died in 06. So probably my 4th year in a late model, but really the last 2 years, he couldn't even go to the track. So that, but he was probably the biggest influence on me. And then, I was really lucky. So right down the road, Billy Drake lives right down the road from me, or actually his dad does. So not Billy, but that's where they kept their race car. And, man, when I would be done working my sportsman car, we moved in here when I was 15. So every night when I'd be done working on my race car, I'd be riding my bicycle down there. And, Billy's dad taught me, Steve, he taught me a ton. I learned a ton of stuff from him. And, Steve always told me I was the first guy they ever bought pit passes for. So I'd go with him and race as much. I'd go with him as much as I could, learn as much as I could and help them all the time. And, I learned a lot from them. And then, I started doing my own deal. So that's helped a bunch.
Well, the one thing about, I think one of the most iconic things when you think of Jason Feger is the 25 with the dice.
Oh, yeah.
All right. You've done a great job. It's a great marketing thing, but, and I got to ask you, I was how did the dice, how did this come apart?
I don't know. So, my grandpa was number 25, and that was always my football number. So I always was 25. Yeah. And then when did I get the dice idea? I was in a Rayburn car, I think. So maybe 06 or 07, maybe. And I just had that. The guy at Boswell, the announcer, started calling me the Highside Hustler. And I'm just, dice and hustling. And I don't know. I just thought it'd be really cool to do a 2 and a 5 and have the dice. And my mom absolutely hated the idea. And she's wanted all my artwork, all my design. And she's like, that's not 2-5, that's 7. I'm like, it doesn't matter, Mom. People will get it. They don't care. And so actually I had the idea a year before, and she would not do it. And I finally just this is what we're doing. And she did it. And then it took her a long time to come around to it, but now that's her favorite thing. And it's just kind of stuck. And, Scott, as a kid, Scott always had the skull and, with the no weak links and stuff. So I always thought that was really cool. Or, Duvall had the Flintstone flyer, you know what I'm saying? You just, some of that iconic stuff that as a little kid, you really like. So then, they call me the Dice Man or whatever, but it's just stuck. And it's funny because I think of the Dome, we didn't really have any dice in the car. I went back to the old school big skull that I had at one time on the front end. Oh my God, people were having a heart attack, right? We go into the dice. And I'm like, okay. But it's and then it's some people like the dice huge and some people like the number big, but it's just always stuck. And just, obviously I was really lucky there. My dad wasn't around, but my mom is a graphic designer by trade. And so that's where, my merchandise, she's always done pretty much all my artwork and all my design and stuff like that. So I've been really lucky there, and she does a great job, and it's worked out good for us.
The dice wouldn't have nothing to do with us throwing dice inside the old hauler.
I always loved playing dice. So that's part of the reason, just fits what we do. We're gambling all the time, right?
I got a good quick story because you said Boswell, but I remember my first year I run the Summer National Tour, the full deal. We went to Boswell. I had never been there. I sat quick time. I win my heat race, and I always park. Me and Feger parked right by each other a lot of that time. Him and I have always been great friends. But I remember I rolled up to staging, and I had killed a right front in the heat race. Me being young and dumb and all this stuff, and Austin's with him at the time. I think, all right, I'm going to bolt a new right front 20 on. This thing's going to just cook, no big deal. And I see Austin walk up to my car and he walks by my right front, and then he kind of peeks back and gives it a weird look and carries on, no big deal. And we took the green. I'm telling you, I drive out there and I'm just cruising. I'm like, man, I'm going to bust these guys' asses tonight. This is going to be good. About 6 laps later, right front's gone. Feger blows by me like I'm sitting still. I think I run like 9th, And after the race, Austin comes over and I said, what did you look at my car? He said, man, I knew you weren't going to last 10 laps the second I saw you had a right front on there. And he said, the only way you can ever put a new right front on, especially at this place, he said, find some kid that's never worked on a race car, never buffed a tire in his life, and tell him, just go buff it on that thing for like 10 minutes. He said, that'd been the only shot you had to win that race. But I remember that story. It just as perfect as anything. It was so funny. And I picked up a lot from Jason and Austin, God knows how many times. I don't know how many races we've been together in over the years. It's a lot. And we've picked each other's brains a million times. And, that's one of the, cool things I feel like about racing as well. It's just how a lot of us all rely on each other.
I always hear that in the pit area about Jason. Jason is one of the most helpful guys to a lot of the younger guys coming up, you've always been that guy in the pit area. Yeah, people really look up to you. And I think it's something to be, and all you got to do is, if you go to Hustler Fest, which I went this year, of course.
Yeah. And
you could see the amount of people that are there. It is unbelievable. And this guy has the microphone in his hand from the first item that gets auctioned to the last one. This guy is like, I was really impressed.
He's got a microphone and a drink. Don't leave that part out. Don't leave that part out.
It's so organized. Everything about that event, the Hustler Fest. I will miss it. I brought 2 of my best friends with me. And one of the reasons I went is because one of my best friends is one of his biggest fans, and he knows it. And he's like, we got to go. I go, Jason, I said, well, I'm going to do some promotional items for it anyway, because I love helping him any way I can, because he's just old school. What we're looking at tonight is what you get with Jason. Yeah. And that's what I've had so much fun. We've golfed a lot together. We've done a lot of things, even off the track. And you always, you and Abby, the hospitality that you've given me, dude, you're like family to me. And I hope you always know that. And you're very, and I know that it carries on. And that's why when you look at Hustler Fest and you look at all the kids that are there and everything that he's got going on through, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
You are a fan favorite, man. Yeah. And you deserve all the accolades that you get. You deserve them, brother. I wish we could, Abby's got to get us a picture, though, of the Price is Right deal. The Halloween costume on the Price is Right, because it's still one of my favorite photos
I heard a story about Hustler Fest. I wasn't there this year, but I heard there was a stuffed animal or a unicorn or what I need to know the story on.
Well, here's the deal on the unicorn. From what I understand, first of all, you got to understand, he's got things going. I'm not kidding you. He got bottles of moonshine that he had all night. If you got something, a bottle, here come these bottles of moonshine. They were coming out of everywhere, and they were going like for $100 and everything all night. It was crazy, man. It was nuts. Well, anyway, all of a sudden, and the doors are like going, they got a stuffed unicorn that's probably you could grab out of any store, like Six Flags.
It was pretty big. It's probably 4 foot long.
So, yeah. $15 or whatever.
Yeah, I have no idea. My mom found this unicorn, and obviously there's a ton of kids there, and so we always try to have some things for kids, and it's just a lot of times this stuff's donated, or we try to find what we can find cheap and get a little money on, and we like to try to have some items honestly that are a little cheaper so people can bid on some stuff. Well, we're setting up like a couple days before, and we had this unicorn there, and my daughter Wynn just loves this thing to death, and I'm like. And she wasn't going to bed that night. And I'm like, I got to sell it at some point. And I put up there, oh my God, she about had a heart attack. So Abby's dad, Mark, he got in a bidding war with my buddy Tyree, and this unicorn went for $1,100.
Oh my God.
The bad part is like Tyree was going to donate it to give it back to Wynn anyway, because we call her like his other grandpa. So
$1,100.
And Abby's dad didn't even know, I don't think, who was buying her, that he's going to give it back to her. So, oh my God. And so now that's quite the family joke. Abby's dad got a lot of slack from all his other kids about what their kids are going to be needing for Christmas or whatever. So, but yeah, it's Hustler Fest is awesome, man. And yeah, I think you know, what you're saying. I think like we have a big fan base, but I think I think what our sport still has, like where NASCAR has really missed the boat or why they're not what they were, is because our fans can still relate to us. You know what I mean? Like, Gordy, you're going and working at a t-shirt shop every day. I went to school to be a mechanic, was a mechanic. I was fortunate enough to do that. And it's like, there's just still a lot of down to earth blue collar guys in our sport. Not that there's not in NASCAR, but like, you know, and our sport's definitely changing too, you know, like you're second generation, but it's a little different than like a Bobby or Devin or some of these guys too. But, you know, those fans are still overlapping, you know, it's no different like how big of Earnhardt Jr. had. That's kind of like Bobby or Devin. Like they're, you know, their dad's fans are now their fans plus some, right? And so NASCAR has pretty much lost that, right? They don't really have a ton of that or the people that guys can relate to that are everyday guys, or they can come down there and drink a beer with us or come shake our hand, or we're hanging out with them just like normal people. So I feel like that's why our sport is in such a demand right now, especially at the big events, is because I mean, I just don't know where you get that access. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, you know, drag racing is pretty good about it, and I feel like that's, you know, probably why they've stayed popular to a lot of things, or like the Monster Jam and stuff like that. You know, they do a great job of getting them people out there, and it's like, you know, I still think our sport, the series, need to do a better job of getting the drivers out there, which I feel like they're doing a little bit better. But I still, it's just, you know, we're relatable, and I mean, you know, and that's why I tell everybody, I was like, man, you got a lot of shirts here. I said, yeah, I probably drink a beer with everybody here.
Yeah. No.
I always just picture myself as like that little kid in the pits, you know, getting to sit in this guy's car, going to get that autograph. And I mean, at heart, that's still me. So every time there's a little kid, I mean, if they want to sit in my car, they can sit in my car. If they don't want to, you know, I try to do as much as I can. And whether you're in a good mood or a bad mood, just because I remember how important that was to me when I was a little kid at the racetrack. And I just think our sport's probably better about that than a lot of sports.
Well, and you said it, right? It's like, there's not many major sports, right? We're not we're not a major sport in a sense, but we're growing to a point where there's thousands of people who go to these races, but where else can you just buy a pit pass and walk right down and be 5 foot from your favorite driver? And at the end of the night, 90% of us hang out, you know, after the races and are, you know, on a Friday night drinking beer or just sitting out there. Guys are grilling out and fans can walk right up to you, and you don't get that anywhere else. And you really realize, as drivers too, we get to know all the crew guys, the families, the owners, you end up meeting all these people, and you realize that the reason we're all a big racing family is because we're all the exact same. Right, we all love this sport. We all have a passion for it. We want to see it grow, but at the same time, we also are competitive. We work hard, but we go home and we do the same thing just as regular people do. You know, ours is a little more expensive of a hobby than most. Right. But now we're fortunate because of the way we've been. The streaming obviously has helped us so much to bring more money into our sport, but it hasn't changed the people that are in the sport. That's the one thing I've always liked. You know, nobody has got this big. Honestly, if anybody ever got a big head about being somebody big, they just get knocked down by somebody, and they would just get told off by it. So, which is also cool. So, and it's hard. I don't want to say it's hard because, but racing, you race with a lot of your friends, and there's a time that it's hard to kind of diverge that into where you're just a strictly business man, kind of is, because I know all of us, we try to give each other as much room as you can, because you might look at it and go, man, that's my buddy. I don't want to run that guy over. But sure as shit, the next guy that ain't your buddy is going to run you over. So,
yeah, for sure.
And it's a two-way street, but it is what makes our sport so great and why it has continued to grow at a rapid rate over the last 5 and 10 years.
Well, I think it's funny because I look at Jason, I see your grandma, and then you see your mom, Tracy, and then Abby. Then of course now you got the little one running all over the place too. I mean, it's a family thing for you.
Yeah,
it's got to be. And Gordy's the same way. I mean, mom and dad are in the truck. Dad works on the car. Mom's working this. I mean, he's got Savannah. He's got the baby too with it, and I think it's great. I think it's like you guys have this racing fraternity family.
And it's nuts because, we're still good friends with, Jeep and K-Rob. They don't race, and they still come to the races, and, we're still, really good friends. There's a lot of people that are that way even out of there. It's you got almost, you got better friends almost in racing than you did, through the rest of the aspects of your life. And it's but you're with these people so much and all the time, and it is awesome. The same thing with fans. You just meet a lot of fans and sponsors and everything that, you just get to be so close with. And that is one of the best things about our sport,
Yeah.
I think what people also don't realize, man, I get a lot of information from this guy when it gets closer to football season. We're always helping each other with fantasy football. It's we have a blast doing that every time. It's like, Don, who you like this week?
Abby keeps beating me in fantasy, so me and all my buddies. So
and the other thing we got to talk about a little bit is Redbeard. I mean, it's obvious that you guys got a lot of synergy with the way you and him communicate. It's actually a lot of fun to see, and I think it's one of the best driver crew chief combinations in our sport.
You should see when they're mad at each other. That's my favorite.
yeah, I had him on a roller coaster Friday night because he was 2,000 miles high after he won a heat race with his chest sticking way out, and I hit that rut and I go off the track and it looked like a little beat puppy. So oh my God, it was a bad deal.
Oh man,
He was so heartbroken. It was so bad. I mean, but I feel bad. Obviously you don't mean to do that stuff, but no, I've known Jason for a long time. Actually, I think the first time I met him, he was helping Jordan Bland, and we were on the Summer Nationals, probably 2 or 3 somewhere. And I didn't run them all, but we ran a lot of them. And Jordan was kind of hanging out with Jeep because he had Massville, and then I got to know Jeep because I had Massville, and that's kind of when I met Jason. And honestly, like him and my brother were probably better friends for a long time than me and him. But, we always were friends or this or that, always talked here or there. And then, honestly, the only reason he works for me is because his wife now, Sarah, is originally from Kankakee, and now they bought a house about 30 minutes north of me, and she can work from home most of the time, but she's still not far from Kankakee. Otherwise, he could definitely make more money. You know what I mean? Other people have offered a lot more money, but at the end of the day, I know that he loves how he does really like me. We're a lot like brothers, and he also has a lot of pride in the way we do things and what we've built, and knows it's not just about money, and then it's weird because that guy, he lived in a toter home his whole life. This is like the first time he's actually had like a house and a dog and a spot to go home. So he doesn't want to be gone every night. You know what I'm saying? So we're a lot in the same page on a lot of that stuff. And, I'm happy for him that he has that stuff now because, when we're young, you don't have responsibilities. We all would give anything to do that life. But as you get older, you miss a lot of stuff and you sacrifice a lot. And it's rewarding to have a house and to be at home or to have a kid or your dog or whatever. Right. And so I'm really happy for him in that. But no, we're a lot like brothers. Honestly, the relationship's a lot like my brother. And
that's what I was gonna say. I think it's funny to me because I've watched Austin jump Jason's ass. I don't know how many times about stuff, and Redbeard is the same way. Like he
doesn't really jump my ass. He just gets mad.
He expects the most out of you, which is what Austin did. And if it's a time where Jason goes out there and maybe he don't think it or something, and he comes in and he just says, "Oh, blowing it off." Like Redbeard is going to make sure he lets him know that he ain't happy with what just happened, and that it's not acceptable, which is what you need as a race car driver. It's good to have.
And then like I've always told my brother, my wife, anybody, I'm like, if I slide somebody dirty or I run somebody off the track or do something bad, don't say it wasn't my fault. I want to know. Like if I screwed up, like that's the worst ones is. It's like having an enabler around you all the time, right? Like if I'm screwing up, if I'm driving like a pussy or I'm driving too hard, I need to know these things because a lot of times in the car, it's hard to know. So like, I just want you to tell me your honest opinion about what you're seeing I'm doing out there. I don't need anything sugar-coated or anything like that. So just tell me the truth, right? And he's good at doing that, so in that aspect, it went really well.
I had one of the moments the other night when I landed on Cheppy's nose. So, yeah, I mean.
I said something down there at the draw, and Cheppy's like, "Oh, no, I shouldn't have screwed up the lap before." No.
Yeah. Well, and that's just how Sheppy is, too, And
yeah.
It was it was kind of one of those deals. I went across there, knew when I went across was a backward slide, and I was like, I'm in a bad spot. And I just was like, okay, maybe if I try to get across here, he'll just cross me. And then next thing you know, I felt my ass picked up and was like, okay, maybe he just was like, hey, you're in the way type deal. And after I got out, I looked over at Dad and I said, hey, was I clear? My dad looked at me, he said, you know. And so me and Sheppy were parked. Our haulers were parked pretty much almost nose to nose, like a little offset. So I was like, all right, I'll be right back. And I booked it over to Sheppy's hauler and just told him, I said, man, I screwed up. And the best was Super Shep was in there. Super Shep looked right at me. He said, I'd have spun your ass out. And I told him, I said, no. I said, you just spun Trevor out. Trevor's run over him twice. Sheppy still owes him one. I said, you just spun Trevor out. You'd have given me a break. And
you might have done it. And he still might have spun Trevor out.
Yeah, exactly. So it was funny. And I actually, I didn't even watch it. Then I went back and watched the highlights on Sunday. When I watched the highlights, I was like, oh man, it was even worse than just run over a little bit. So, but it's, you're exactly right. It's just part of it. And
you lit a fire under Sheppy because he wicked it up. After
I know.
That. I was in the infield watching, and he put on a show after that.
I know it. That's
he
why
went
I
back
screwed
and
up.
forth to the win. So maybe that's what he needed.
Yeah, well, when I went and told him, he's like, oh, I already had my right rear over the top, and I screwed up on the start. And just Sheppy, you would think with that super competitive nature that he is, that he would be real fire. He's actually one of those guys, more or less, that he's just going to brush that off, and you're never going to hear nothing else from him about it. He almost pins it on himself more than he does anything else. So, but it's fun racing with him though. But I knew as soon as I got back on. Actually, I saw a blue car go by me. I was like, dang, Sheppy already crossed me back, and it was Dennis. I'm like, where's Sheppy? And then 2 laps later, he passes me like I'm sitting on jack stands and drives the heat race win. So I told him when I left, I said, I'm glad you drove back to the win. You'd have probably been more pissed if you wouldn't have won the heat race.
But no, yeah. So, I mean, Redbeard, that guy, he can build a car from the ground up, you know what I mean? And I have 100% confidence in him. And he's very meticulous about his work. He definitely is not the fastest guy in the world, but he does a really good quality job. And he's been with a lot of people. He started with Dan Sleeper. Yep. He's been with Jordan Bland, Duke Wisnett, Ricky Weiss. He was with Scott for quite a while. He actually worked at Pro Power, just with some of the motors and stuff like that. And his uncle, was like a heavy diesel mechanic and also works on a lot of off-road trucks up in Wisconsin. So he's worked there for a while. That's actually how he got into the racing. He started with off-road trucks, and then so I got 100% confidence in him, and it's crazy because I've always done things a certain way in my life or in my car and try to do things this way. And he really does it pretty much identical to the way I do it. Or, there's things he showed me and there's also things I've showed him. But for the most part, we do things almost identical. So, and I still ask him, I look at him, I'm like, I got to ask, did you do this? He goes, yep, I did it just like that, and he knows, but I'm like, but he doesn't get mad about it. I've had guys in the past, they get mad if I'm asking. It's not that we're a team, right? And it's I always tell them guys, listen, in football, why would you ever need a secondary, right? Because the line and the linebackers never miss a tackle. They're back there when stuff happens. So in our deal, you're gonna have enough bad luck that's out of your control. You just got to have them. I always try to have them safety nets, I guess you'd say, or whatever, so we just don't have problems, right? And so he doesn't get butthurt when I question him or talk about that stuff or ask how he did things a certain way. So but that's really important, and then. But yeah, so I got 100% confidence in him, and it allows me to, have a little more time with my family. I know we've been trying to build a new race shop, and I feel like I'm always working on this toter home or stacker because that's all you do with those things. So, but it takes a team, and then now I got David, this is his 3rd season with me, and he's been great. But he's getting better and better every year. That's what a lot of people don't realize is I feel like how long it actually takes to get to the top. In a crew chief world, or to be able to do everything and then be able to do everything well, right? Most guys come in, they start off as if you come in and people want to come and do this glory work, well, there is no glory work. You're going to sweep floors and clean wheels and dump trash cans, and you're going to start off probably grooving tires, and it's it just takes a long time. When you're building a rear end, or you're doing this way, or building oil lines, it takes a long time for somebody to be able to learn all that stuff. And it's probably harder now because I feel like more teams are just buying cars 100% ready to race, where it never really used to be that way. Everybody would come put their cars together. You basically would just almost buy a frame, or very few people would buy rollers or a very simple basic roller where, so that's probably been harder for the crew guys. You know what I'm saying? To learn a new crew guy to learn those steps. And unfortunately, there's nowhere you can just go learn that. You just got to be there at the time is getting done. To do it, and hopefully that is the off season or a time where you're slow enough where you can actually teach, and not just be in a hurry to get it done.
That's a rarity anymore. We don't really have much of an off season anymore. So
It is a big rarity. But yeah, so maybe that's part of the reason we have a lack of quality crew guys, you know what I'm saying, around, or like, I mean, they're just, there's not a ton of them. And, but David's with me for my third year, and we played musical crew guys for quite a few years. And obviously when my brother was with me full time and Devin and Posio, I had a really strong team for a long time. Yes. And then I was always kind of missing that. I'd have a few good guys here or there and stuff, but it's really nice to have a consistent and good quality people helping me. And I mean, I think that reflects in, what we've been doing in the last few years.
The other thing I want to talk about a little bit, something came across social media today, and, it's the McCready going to Longhorn a little bit. It seems like, right, we all hear it, and we all listen. All three of us are great. Listen, all three of us are great friends with Timmy.
I wish I could tell you.
And we love him, but no, I do not know. And here's the thing I've learned. I'm not even going to ask the question at this time because I want to respect all parties, because, you got sponsors involved and everything else. I don't believe it's my business. I think you got to respect the individual. And yes, Timmy is like a brother to me, and I'd do anything for him. But at the same time, we all know that it's been a struggle. The last 2 years haven't been a lot of fun for the guy, and we all wish Timmy the best. And I'd like to know a little bit. You guys hear some things and rumblings. You're all in it, and I know that we've had this talk. It's like, man, Timmy belongs in I've learned a lot from that guy. We've been on the phone a lot talking about that. And Gordy's the same way. I know that Gordy looks up to Timmy a little bit too, in the fact that with all this stuff going on. And I'd like to just hear a little bit about, you guys saw the rumor too, kind of like, what's going on, kind of what your thoughts are a little bit of what's going on.
First thing, I mean, I talked to another driver yesterday a little bit, and we talked a little chassis stuff, and he wasn't real happy with somebody, and I don't want to really say any names. And I'm like, I guess I'll say this. I had Black Diamonds for a while, and I had Ronnie Stuckey, and Ronnie's been in the sport a long time, and Ronnie's a great guy, right? He's still a really nice guy. He always comes and talks to me, I don't think you can find anybody that wouldn't say anything good about Ronnie. And when I left and went to Rocket, Ronnie's like, man, I hate to see you go. He said, but, he goes, I know we got some work to do. He goes, we're not where we need to be right now. And, hopefully I can get something where you can come back, and you're always welcome here. And I learned a long time ago, you can't get mad at guys for switching or leaving. They got to do what they got to do or what they think's best for their program, right? And this is what he told me a long time ago. And there's plenty of chassis builders that are not that way. They get really butthurt and they get really mad. And then I don't know why you'd ever want to trash a guy or throw a guy through the mud or anything like that, because there's a good chance they're going to come back. I mean, as CJ said, they'll all be back, right? And if you want them back, build a better piece. And it's tough. And I think it's just one of the things we're used to seeing the same guys be with something for so long. It's kind of new. Like sprint car guys and cup guys, they're changing rides and teams all the time. And like you see it in football and basketball, it's like you don't want to say there's no loyalty, but they get traded right away, and to another team. And it's just, I think we're going to start seeing it more and more frequently. And I feel like we already have, right? Or whether now we even got a silly season for late model racing, but I don't know that there's any reason for feelings to be getting hurt. At the end of the day, you got to look at it like a business decision. And I know I've cost myself a lot of money over years being loyal to people and not switching motors or cars or doing things a certain way because you're trying to be loyal and you become friends with these guys. So that's the hardest part. But as a businessman from the outside, if you were running a real business and somebody was supplying you with something and it wasn't working or was costing you money, you would never hesitate to switch to another provider. And there's a lot of money at stake, and people are spending a lot of money in this deal. And that's the world we live in right now. And that's just how it's going to be. And you're going to continue to see it more and more. And maybe it's worse now because of the social media and, everybody that's an expert. So I don't know, but I just think it's going to happen a lot. And you can't, if a guy thinks he needs to go get this, then he's going to have to go get that. And if a guy thinks he needs that, he's going to have to go get that. And I don't know that there's any magic in a Longhorn. I mean, they fit me really well. Like, I'm saying they're balanced really well for me. Turbo tried one, didn't like it. Squirrel tried one, didn't like it. And he went back to Rocket and won a lot of races and came back to Longhorn and still won a lot of races. So Bobby won in the Rocket. He wins in the Longhorn. He won in a Pierce car. Like Marlard has won in everything he's been in. I don't know. You just got to find what fits best for you. And a lot of times it could be the motor. I mean, Gordy knows, like you can have the motor is the hardest thing to know if it's good or bad because they all make power and all run good. but it's like how they're running, how they're putting the power down. Like I can take my motor, I can take there's a lot of times I can take my standard bore 430 Dickens, which is like 100 horsepower off my big Clement stuff, and I can go out there and have fast time with that, and I can't do it with my Clement stuff. And it's like, it's just how the power is applied and in the right spots at the right times, and trying to be consistent in that. So the motor thing, unfortunately, is very expensive and very hard to tell, and it, even just changing a carburetor or changing a restrictor can make you a whole different race car. So it's really hard to know what's what. I mean, I'm saying then you want to throw in shocks and then you want to throw in tires, and it's tough, but at the end of the day, you just got to go where you're most comfortable and try to build a package for you and know your adjustments and what you're comfortable in, and, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Timmy go to Longhorn and run good, but he knows those cars better than anybody. Probably in my mind, he basically built those cars, he developed that thing and built it where it is. And he's helped. And listen, Bronson will tell you that. Dalton Wilson will tell you. There's a lot of guys that will go to bat for Timmy and what he meant to Longhorn and what he did for those cars. And my dog's going crazy. But he knows. But he's got years of notes too, right? And what that did.
That's right.
When you're talking a 20-pound load or one spring rubber at certain tracks, and can make or break things, and you have these notes to rely back on. That's huge, and that's what's been good for me. I've been consistent now. This is going to be my 4th year in a Longhorn. I got notes from all these tracks, and I very rarely anymore unload in a bad position. So if you unload in a good position and then you make a better adjustment and then a better adjustment, you're ahead. The worst thing you can do is unload bad and then make a bad adjustment. Now you're 2 steps behind somebody or 3 steps behind somebody that unloaded good. So it's just so much about that notebook and trusting your gut and what you know. And
I think Timmy, right? Like Timmy's at the point where he ain't no spring chicken anymore, right? And he's not just going to waste his time, and he shouldn't. He doesn't. It's undeserving for him to sit around here and waste his time if he thinks that's what he's doing. If in his mind it's made up that it's those cars and he needs to get back in Longhorn, then I don't even know if that's the truth. I'm not saying that's what he said, but at the same time, if that's what he decides,
you understand it.
I mean, it's a confidence thing. We all know that you have to have confidence to go in and win these races too. And if you don't have confidence in your program when you get to the racetrack, you're sure as hell not going to have it by the end of the night. So, and exactly what Jason said, Timmy helped develop Longhorn to what it is now. Without Timmy at the helm there for a while, they are not in any standing of what they are right now.
They won the championship twice. They're 2-time champions.
Yeah, and so I think at the end of the day, he has to put himself in the best situation possible. And there's a lot of people that get butthurt about stuff like that. There's a lot of people that don't see that side of it. And they just think, oh, you have to stay with this team because you opened the year with us. You're loyal to this. And I get that to a point. One of the things my dad always taught was loyalty, to the people who support you. And there's a lot to be said about product sponsors and things like that, those people. But when you're chasing, overall speed and confidence and those things, it might not be in that race car. It might be in something else. And if that's what you think it is, then you need to go that direction. And if that's what Timmy ends up doing, I bet you're going to see him come out the gate a lot hotter than he did so far this year. And in reality, I think with Boom stuff, I don't really know if they were all that bad. I think they had some bad luck moments and some other things, but I don't think the confidence is there. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of all of it.
And I don't think you can gauge everything what happens in Florida.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, we're just now getting into
Bobby didn't want to race in Florida, and has he been beat? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, you definitely can't gauge Florida. But unfortunately, I mean, everybody does gauge Florida. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
and it's a big part now.
Well, the national point standings gauge Florida, and that's a big point.
That's true.
I mean, and I think too. And I'm not trying to go crazy off topic, but that's a whole nother topic of discussion of how bad Florida actually is, because they let everybody, they let 60 cars race each night because the series kind of set themselves off so they can get as many cars as they need. And then it puts guys behind like a situation like this. But, and that's just the reality of it right now that we're dealing with is Florida is gauged for the national touring guys. And it causes guys to switch. I mean, we've seen it a million times. Crew chief switches, car switches, motor switches coming out of Florida after it's really hard to go down there and run good every night.
Well, we talked about like Donnie Schatz, making the engine change. Gordy talked about it earlier, the fact that the change maybe, he's in the, he still is capable in races, and he's going to go out and do the best thing that's for his program. And so, and I don't think it's any by no means a slam like on the Rocket, by no means at this, because all you got to do is look at Josh Rice, man, has been hotter than fire here. I mean, he's been tearing it up. Yep. Then you look,
Yep, Turtle's been good.
And then Troutman, goes out to Port Royal. Here he is, in our top 15 drivers and whatever. And Eckert is in a 6-year-old motor, in this rocket car. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I know that Rick races there a lot, but at the same time, he's winning. Yeah. And then look at Sheppy last week. Sheppy, a couple of breaks, he's in victory lane. Yeah. So I don't think by no means is this. I think Mark's cars are fine or whatever. It's just, I think, like you guys just said, I think it's a choice. What you're comfortable with, what your books are.
I mean, it's just, to me, that Longhorn's so consistent. Like in their base, I just feel like their window and their margin for error is just bigger, right? Like it's just, you can miss on a setup and still be faster, but like that doesn't mean if you hit it right, you're going to be faster, and like one thing's for sure, like Rocket's not going to lay over. I mean, them guys are working their balls off. They're testing all the time. I mean, Mark Richards is not going to, nobody's just going to lay over and let whoever take it. And like, I'm a Longhorn guy, but honestly, for the good of our sport, we need 2 or 3 chassis. You need 3 or 4 chassis to be strong, right?
No different than the series.
We don't need
Multiple series.
We need more guys to be strong. We need Mars and we need Capital and Isa Berry and Stuckey and all these guys could be. And I mean, like, listen, them Carpenters are fast. Them Kryptonite cars, they have their moments where they go really good, and so does some of Schlank's guys. So it's like,
well, look at Hitchcock. Look what Hitchcock's doing in that car of his.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we've all seen it as from the racer standpoint, right? We've seen the cycles, right? When Scott was in his heyday, and he had Jimmy and Dennis and Eckert, they kicked everybody's ass up and down the road there for a while, and then Rocket cooked back off, right? And then Black Diamond had there for a little bit, had some really good years. And then it circled into Longhorn, and I'm not saying that Longhorn's going to go away because I don't see that necessarily happening, but I think that eventually the tide will turn. Somebody else is going to hit on something, and it's going to bring those chassis back. And Jason's right. We need those other chassis builders. We don't need one chassis.
The thing with Longhorn is they're in just such a hotbed for technology, right? And they've got such good resources down there with the Cup guys. And listen, there's very smart people there. Like, and they have a lot of very smart people that are working really hard, and they're just going to make everybody else step up their game, and, Mark Richards made a lot of people step up their game. So it just keeps going in them cycles and where we go next. And, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? That's just, it's tough. It's a hard business.
And I think you get both of you guys hit it right on the head. Yeah. So I think it's good that we're all, knowing that you need the multiple organizations like we talked about. We were talking about the high limit in the World of Outlaw sprint cars earlier.
Them guys that are 100% woo guys on the sprint car guys, they're crazy. Like, what are they thinking? And they're bashing high limit. Like, are they not realize the only reason they're getting half this money is because of high limit? Like, it blows my mind. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a woo guy, but let's be realistic. If this Barry Rondo coming here and they're pumping this XR series, Lucas and Flo and Woo's not paying us what they are. You can't. Whether you like Barry or you don't, he made those guys pay us more money. Hands down, he did that 1 year and forced these guys to pay a ton more money to keep their cars. And that's exactly what High Limit did to Woo. I mean, this WRG is getting rich. I mean, rich. If you don't know how much money they're making on this pay-per-view and on these sponsors, you're getting Buffalo. They can put on a lot of races and pay a lot of money. You see what they've been paying out. They're not generating that much more than they were. They're just now having to pay it. And it's like, wow. Shows how much we were missing. These guys are just beating on their chest. Like, basically, a few interviews. I don't get to follow a ton of sprint cars. My guys do, but I watched a few of these interviews. I'm like, you guys are crazy. And then the other thing to me is like, why Woo won't let those guys go run open like we run blows my mind. It is, to me, it's the dumbest thing ever. And just me as a driver on principle, which I know there's team owners and things, I would never let somebody tell me, this is how you have to do it, right? You got to be with us or this or that. That would force me to go to the other series because I can still come race with you whenever I want.
That's right. I mean, and we grew up doing that. We grew up racing whenever we wanted, wherever we wanted, but we also, because we're in the heart of it. But I think to your point, the reason.
How do you call it the Outlaws? I mean, you won't let these guys go race, and they're supposed to be outlaws. Like,
Well, and I
outlaws
think
are guys that go race wherever they want.
I do think part of it was just because, there for a while they were running 90 races. When they had one series, but I mean, don't get me wrong, over the last 10 years, it grew to what it is now with the amount of sprint car racing. And why they haven't made an amendment to what they're doing, I don't understand. I think it's terrible. I think for one, I think it hurts them. I think it looks like they're the big bully of all this, and they just think, well, this is the way it is. And I do get some of the points because I know with talking with Donnie before, when he joined the Outlaws a long time ago, being an outlaw meant a lot, and it was about, being at the top series and all that. But things have changed, and it's crazy for teams to be not going to these huge races, paying races that bring money into their teams. That part I don't quite understand.
Well, the charters. I mean, what do you think, Jason?
What do you think they said about Lucas Oil when Lucas Oil came about? When there was hardly, and now look at it's the other way around. Everybody's like, well, Lucas Oil is the thing, and not World Outlaws and Late Models. So at the end of the day, really props to Kyle Larson, and because he got to racing this late model stuff and realized, and then got with Brad and then Flo, and they're like, these late model guys are getting way more money for what they're doing than we're getting over here. And he saw it. And hats off to them for at least doing something and making Outlaw step up, and for them stepping up and letting them sprint car guys actually get to make a lot of money. I mean, or an opportunity to make more money. I mean, because they were, and I love I slipped my name, the All-Star Sprint Series. I love that series. So that was a good series. Like, I wish they still had something like that through there.
Yeah, and they do. They're back now. They're back this year. Yeah, they're back now.
It'd be like a Mars. It's like a Mars series, right? And you need that good series. And those tracks need those where they can pay a smaller purse and still get crowds. So the tracks need that, the promoters need that, and the drivers need that, and that still helps the big series too, but hats off to them guys for actually doing something and twisting some arms and making shit happen so them guys can get paid.
Yeah, you can't blame, Kyle's going to leverage his name.
And
thank God. But who hasn't? Boyers did it. But you don't work that. If you work that hard and are that good, you should be able to leverage your name, right? I mean, Boyer did it to get his cup or his teams. Tony Stewart's done it for all his teams, and it's nothing new. I mean, that's just the world we live in, and it's just how. And Casey Kane, in the sprint car world, so that's good. I mean, our sport needs that. I wish we had more of the cup drivers trying to get back involved in our business, like we did at one point. How awesome would it be if Tony owned a late model team? I mean, I know he tries to stay neutral in that aspect, but if we could have some of them guys getting into there, which to me is another subject, but our biggest problem is we need teams like that. And this is Boyer said this a long time ago. He wanted to have it to where a guy could make a living working on a dirt late model, not necessarily the driver. He was worried about the crew guys, right? And that's where people don't realize right now is the amount of hours we can't find enough quality help because we can't pay enough because we're so top heavy. And that, this is a whole nother conversation, but that's where, some of them guys were visionaries on some of that stuff. And that's what we need. We need them guys involved so they run it like a business, and these guys are on payroll, getting more money and getting paid what they're worth.
Well, I think it's been a great show, and we probably need to wrap this thing up. And you were exactly what we thought it would be.
We could probably go for 4 more hours.
I go for a long time.
If Jason was here, we'd probably head over to Uncle Larry's to finish this conversation.
I miss Uncle Larry.
Well, I think, and the other thing too is, the nice part about what the racing season brings is there's going to be a lot of topics throughout this year that are going to come up, and we're definitely going to have you back on because we know we're going to get some controversy. Hell, we know we got a new tire coming. There's a lot of different stuff that's going to be big topics that I know. For one,
are you sure you can tell people about the new tire? Because I feel like they've done a really good job trying to keep it a secret.
I just did.
Wow, talk about a debacle. Facebook's gonna blow up that day. It's gonna be people are gonna be so mad. Oh my God, that's a huge, the huge mistake was not putting us on that tire from the get go.
I know it.
Yeah, I mean, why you ever put us on the standard 3 and the tires you did? American races are gonna be faster in them areas. So you should have put us on a better tire to start with, and we never would have had this problem. And now it's and to do it now, you can't do it after Florida.
Yeah.
You can't even get this tire, and it's gonna be mandatory in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they're going to handicap all of us. All it's going to do is cost us more money. That's all.
Well, you know what? I was going to end this conversation and kind of like close out, but now that you guys have kind of went into something else you got my ears. I want to know more about this tire situation.
There's not even tires. There's not even right rear threes at Hoosier Midwest for them to get. I was told they're probably going to have to bring in a Wasota 3 for these guys to get through to the Illini, and then after the Illini, the new tires are going to become available.
Yep. I mean,
I guess you better hope the new tire is better than the old tire, because if it's not, or hopefully the guys that are going to be stockpiled on the old tires are going to be better. But I'm pretty sure the new tires are going to be better.
We'll be right back to what we were doing before, where they allowed the 20s to race with the 2s for a long time, and you had to find the 20s because they were miles ahead of the 2s.
It was like just the rollout to me and the secrecy. Like, how do you roll it out like a month into the racing season or 2 months into the race? Like, and not just do it more cut off like the floor. I don't know. It just blows my mind.
Well, and the other thing, which I still have never understood about any way Hoosier does any of this stuff, is we are never included in on any of this.
I'm not. I don't. I mean,
right.
There's some of these guys.
I would say, if anything, maybe 5 or 10, probably 10 teams, right? Maybe if we're talking, but it's never all of us, right? There never is no discussion that comes ahead of, hey, let's get a bunch of these teams together. Let's call a meeting on a Tuesday when there's not a bunch of racing. Let's in a middle area, which we would all drive to, and say, let's have an open forum discussion about some of this stuff and see if what we're about to do is a good idea or not a good idea. We can hem it up pretty quick. That's never what happens. It is always, this is how we're doing it. Hey, by the way, we're out of tires, so I hope you bought some. And when we roll out these new ones, you're going to be able to get 2 or 3 at a time, and that's it. Better keep a hold of them. And now we're going to start bending. We're probably going to be painting tires again, and we're going to be doing all these stupid ass rules that they bring upon us, and we just have to deal with it. But the tire don't get no cheaper, and when they just keep on
shake
rolling.
Worse and worse, they don't get no cheaper.
Yep. So
and I've said from day one, I love a national tire rule, and I think it is better for our sport. But I've said from day one, this wasn't enough right rear tires, and this was the wrong right rear tires to start with. And I still, if I go out to Portsmouth or to Pittsburgh or somewhere like that, and I got to buy Atomic, and I got to buy a right rear 1425. Big deal, because it's going to be junk anyway. If you got to run around here and you're going to run a whole feature on a right rear 2 or 3, it's no good. So if I got to buy right rear tires, it doesn't bother me. When I got to go somewhere and buy a brand new left front tire, that drives me nuts. Like, then you got Eldora in the middle. Well, them guys from out east or down south, they got to buy all new tires. Well, why don't we just have some different right rears? There's nothing wrong with still having maybe a 1425 and a 1350, and you can leave us on whatever you want here in the Midwest. I mean, there's nothing wrong to me with having a few right rear tires if we could get the other 3 corners the same. And I feel like they could implemented this a little bit different. They should have done that from the get-go, but this program they could have implemented a little bit different too. But it is just frustrating as all get out, especially since we just went through this and we all said the same thing. And I don't know. It's frustrating, but it's going to be. I don't think a lot of people know about it yet. Like very, very few people I think know about this. And I was originally thought and told that this wasn't probably going to happen until like the Dream or sometime after the Dream. And now they hear it rolling out right now, and they're just not even any tires to really get. Like, whew.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had known about the new tire, but I didn't know when the implement was coming. And then, we went to get tires last week from a Coconut. We called up and they said, no, we don't have any. And as soon as I heard that, I knew exactly what was coming. That meant they had quit making the 3s because they're going to bring out, their new tire. And now it's just, I'm telling you, it's just going to handicap the rest of us. That's all it's going to do. Is going to put us all in a bad spot. Because now we're going to be going back to things where you can only buy so many, you can only do this, you can only do that. And that's frustrating for racers because we just have to deal with it. And that's just the way it goes. And they could have handled this a lot of different ways. And it just seems like every time it's a botched deal, We haven't done this once yet where we've been like, oh, that was good. I'm glad we did it that way. That has not happened yet. And I foresee in the future they're going to ever make a decision that is good with any of us.
But don't get me wrong. Like, I like being like a Hoosier only. I don't want to get to where we have to have American racers here and Hoosiers there. And I already hate having multiple compounds to choose from for a feature now. So I like the direction they're going. It just, they needed to know that they're going to have a different tire for different areas of the country. Or they should have put us on a better tire to start with, right? Like, don't put us on the worst tire you got. Put us on a better tire.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's just, like I said, it's just part of it. We'll roll with the punches. We'll figure it out, and who knows? Maybe, and hopefully the tire, whatever they're coming out with, hopefully it's a good tire. I mean, I hope they're not making something that's going to be junk. We're going to find out, here before too long. But
unfortunately, I think it's going to be a lot better where your old ones are just going to be worthless, So,
right.
yeah, hopefully you're just not stuck with too many of them. But I don't know. But it's hard to take that gamble because then, what do you do, right?
Yeah.
If the old one happens to be better and you sold them or got rid of them, then you could be wishing you kept them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, Jason, I think we need to wrap this baby up.
Sure.
And I think the big thing is I'd like you to, talk a little bit about your sponsors, give them a plug. I mean, you deserve that. And, some people you want to thank. And
for sure, we, Titan Enterprises and Remtech. We got to welcome SC Online Sales, Dave Geyer on board. He stepped up really big this year. Rosser Battery, Outpaced with Tim Lance, Griffin Sign Shop. Man, I got so many wares machines, Speedworks, headers, Dynamic Drive Lines, VP Race Fuels, Clements, Longhorn, Bill Steen. Man, just everybody that helps me out. Jeep with Northeastern Fabrication. Man, I know I'm missing some. Oh, Hoker.
Oh, man, I was getting ready to say it. I was about to say.
Cheap Cars, Doug's. I don't have I got my car, like, if you're by your car, you can look at your car and have a t-shirt.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do this to me, Don.
It's still early in the season. We had some changes, so I'm like trying to visualize. But no, I mean, we got a lot of great product sponsors, and that really helps me out too. So, but it takes a lot.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on, man. And yeah, I mean, I know the people at home that listen to this are going to love this, man.
Yes.
This has been fun, and just like I said, we appreciate you coming on, and anybody listening, if you need a beer after the races, you stop by the Feger hauler. There's Bush Light.
Your hauler, Gordy.
No. We're still going to yours.
Way more full when you're there.
I know it.
Well, I can't thank you enough, brother,
No
for coming on
problem.
the show. We feel really good about Gordy, what we got going on, and
Listen, I'm buddies with some of them other guys, but they kind of are fake news. Some of them, they don't want to get involved in the dirt, even though there's a lot of dirty in this sport that needs to be out. The truths need to be out there and talked about, and from people that maybe aren't just photographers, that people actually know what's going on and are in it and work on it. So I'm glad that there's a platform for drivers to get out there, and maybe people will start releasing their news releases on you guys and stuff like that. So, get that drove up, and that's what we need.
well, thank you. And, that's the big thing that Gordy and I've discussed. We really want to be the voice of the industry. Absolutely. And people like you have that platform for you guys to speak what's on your mind. It's important. Our goal is simple, and it's to grow the sport.
Yep.
We want to see dirt racing get healthier and healthier and healthier. And people like you, we value your opinion, and it's important.
Appreciate it. Yep. I've been, it's been my life for a long time. So hopefully I'm here for a little bit longer and can keep doing good. And, I just, it is great to see that good, strong next generation come on. We got a lot of good young drivers, and the fan base is just growing. So hopefully they keep everything going good. And, everybody can, hopefully everybody can make a little bit of money and keep doing it for a long time.
Well, thank you again, and we'll see you at the races.
Sounds good. Can't wait, guys.